All right, let's stay with the story on the leadership race within the DA. We're joined now by Professor Susan Booysen, who is the Director of Research at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. Professor, good morning. Thanks very much for your time. I want to talk to you in just a moment about the importance of these political debates by the frontrunners in any party when it comes to an election. But before we get there, some of the issues that Mbali Ntuli brings up just in terms of the vote counting process within the DA, they seem pretty run-of-the-mill and very, very important. I mean, at the least, vote counting should be an auditable process.
Yes, I totally agree with that. You know, we're probably moving into an era where more and more of voting is going to take place digitally, electronically, and it is absolutely imperative that those votes actually be auditable, verifiable. Otherwise, the legitimacy of these processes will always be suspect. There are certainly systems available that political parties can use, and it will be very important to show that they can be a trailblazer in establishing good, solid practice. It is imperative. They will suffer the consequences for several years to come if they cannot absolutely guarantee the integrity of these electoral processes. And verification is very much a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going on to the discussion around a debate between particularly the two leading contenders, in this case there are two of them, but the leading contenders in any political election race, it's not something that we do in South Africa as part of the course. It really is a US phenomenon, but certainly so many merits to that kind of discussion, just to find out, you know, if I'm trying to decide who I'm going to vote for, to find out exactly where the fault lines in those candidates lie.
It would certainly be a great step forward for any political party, and imagine for political parties across the board in South Africa, to allow and structure, encourage debates between the leading contenders. If I may just for a second divert to the ANC. We know in all the ANC leader is very likely to be the president of South Africa, at least historically and for the time being. And so much of the country's politics, internal party politics there. And now in the DA, of course, that would be amazing. And I think the DA could benefit generally in terms of popular perceptions as well on transparency and in knowing, in sharing with a broader population out there via electronic links who exactly with what ideas they propose to lead the party. So I think it is a fabulous invention or initiative. Well, let's see if it gets to the point of actually being implemented. But it will be great if a new tradition in party political leadership contestation can be established in South Africa. Maybe here the DA can be a leader in that respect. But it will be very interesting. And for any political party, there can be great benefits in popular interest, in public interest being generated, not just a very structured, rehearsed victory debate being broadcast, but actually the contest of ideas between any set of political leaders contesting to take over leadership. Here, the party that is likely to remain the official opposition in South Africa.
So Mbali Ntuli essentially challenging John Steenhuisen to these 4 televised debates. I don't have John Steenhuisen's response to that verbatim here, but I think he said something along the lines of, Mbali Ntuli and any other candidate can't determine how campaigning takes place ahead of an election. That needs to be determined by the Federal Congress. He doesn't seem very, very keen to go ahead with the televised debates.
No, and it's very important, the politics and the tactics of these debates, wherever, which party, whichever country it is, because it is a challenger who throws down the gauntlet here, Mbali Ntuli to John Steenhuisen, and that immediately has taken away the initiative from John Steenhuisen. It is a competitor who comes in and say, let's do this. And tactically, that is a very important strategy for a competitor, because that immediately elevates the competitor to the level of the other contender, in this case, probably the leader contender. We also see that in other places. Over the years in South African politics, on several occasions, we've seen opposition party leaders challenge the president or that leading candidate of the ANC to public debates. And those are never taken up. Whenever it becomes inevitable that a debate does take place, then it could probably be the deputy leader or another senior person, for example, in the ANC, that will take up that challenge. But leading candidates and presidents on another front then hardly ever want to step into that space being challenged by a contender. And Mbali Ntuli has immediately elevated herself to another level, put herself on an equal level to John Steenhuisen. And no leading candidate or person who considers him or herself as a leading candidate is gladly going to accept a challenge like that. But I think it is great, and John Steenhuisen has said, as you indicated, yes, if the party says is the way it will be done, he will be available to do it. And the third candidate, John Moody, is also available, or Ntuli said he's welcome to come in as well. So she is immediately pared it down to a contest her and John Steenhuisen rather than a three-way contest.
And like you said, when it comes to politics in particular, the optics of such a challenge presented by Mbali Ntuli, those optics matter, and they matter even more if the competitor, in this case John Steenhuisen, declines.
Yes, indeed. It is almost a no-win situation for John Steenhuisen. He and his current interim leadership of the DA might as well step up and say, yes, we'd love to take on Mbali Ntuli and John Moody, etc. They would probably like to have it a three-way contest and step in and say, yes, let's do it, because it will have a lot of popular appeal, not just in the DA that is going through particular problems of its own at this stage, but it would have national optics and great take-up. I think there would be a huge listenership to such a debate across the country.
Absolutely. And just in terms of what the debate, should it go ahead, between Mbali Ntuli and someone like John Steenhuisen, what it represents, the story it tells about the DA itself and the internal workings of the party, these two candidates, that's also very interesting.
It is fascinating. And also here we have a young challenger, black African woman, who would be coming up against, and in leadership is up against, a white male. Yes, fine in many respects. But these lines of division also epitomize the tension and the struggle for growth and future numbers in the DA, whether it is the old DP, Democratic Party, Liberal Party, and all remnants of the old National Party, largely a white face, or is it a new upcoming generation of followers, largely black African, maybe still largely middle class, but nevertheless, but a new generation who support the DA would need in order to make progress in challenging the ANC in any way. And those racial tensions, identity tensions in the DA that will be part of the optics that come into a debate like that. Of course, there are many other substantive issues. We've already seen Julius thrown down the gauntlet and said Steenhuisen was part of the leadership that has led the DA into a decline in last year's national elections, and that he is part of that political establishment. So she pitches herself and her candidacy already as a new possible growing angle, front of the DA.
Yeah, absolutely. Professor, thanks as always for coming on and giving us your perspective on what is truly an interesting story. That's Professor Susan Booysen joining us here as we continue to unpack the story around Mbali Ntuli challenging John Steenhuisen to those 4 televised debates.